Nia thought the nightmare was only a dream, a dark forest, a silver-black beast, and a hunger watching her from the shadows. But when she wakes, the terror follows her into daylight, threading itself through her photography class, the gaze of her dangerously patient professor, and the warm, golden aisles of Violet's new and used books. By evening, the bookstore becomes less sanctuary than trap. A charming stranger asks for more than books, a beautiful predator recognizes something in her he has been searching for, and a boyish customer watches from the aisles with hunger hidden behind polished manners. Nia does not yet know what she is, what she carries, or why every dangerous thing in Seoul seems to have found her. Some hungers wear beautiful faces. Supernatural. Chapter 1. I think there are demons here. The woods were a dark place. Nia could feel eyes on her. She hurried through the trees, desperate not to lose the last of the sunlight, though in truth the light was already gone. Dark gray had folded into black, and somehow the trees still held their shapes. Tall, skeletal silhouettes reaching into a sky with no stars. Roots caught at her feet, desiccated branches cracked beneath her shoes. Her skirt swept over dead leaves with every step, whispering her location to whatever followed. The forest had begun its night song. Insects, wing beats, distant cries, creatures tuning themselves one by one until the woods breathed around her in a living chorus. Then came another sound, her own hem dragging over leaves. Too loud, too obvious. Every step betrayed her. The air was thick in the heart of the woods, heavy with damp earth, rot sap, and something sweeter beneath it. Almost intoxicating. The deeper Nia ran, the harder it became to breathe. Her lungs burned, her limbs grew heavy. Soon, exhaustion clamped around her bones and forced her to stop. She reached for the nearest tree, pressing one hand to its trunk for balance, then leaned her forehead against the bark. The coolness steadied her. For a moment. She knew the stranger was not far behind. Or maybe he was ahead of her. Maybe he had always been ahead of her, waiting for her to choose the wrong path, waiting for her to falter, waiting for her body to fail before her fear did. Nia closed her eyes halfway. The forest song swelled around her, no longer a chorus, but an orchestra. Beneath it, she heard one heartbeat. Hers, then another. Not hers! Panic surged through her again, but she was too tired to run. Still, she pushed herself away from the tree and stumbled forward. Survive, Nia! The voice crossed her mind with calm, matronly certainty. Survive. She managed 3 more steps. Then the beast appeared. Nia stopped breathing. It stood before her, massive and still, blocking the narrow path between the trees. Silver and black fur streaked its body, somehow glowing against the forest's black canvas. It looked too large to be real, too silent to be alive. What? Nia whispered, the word breaking apart in her mouth. What is this? The beast did not move. It only watched her. A branch cracked somewhere behind them. Both Nia and the beast turned toward the sound. Her pulse broke loose again, hammering hard enough to shake her chest. She could feel her fear betraying her, hear it in every breath, see it in the vapor leaving her mouth. Crunch, snap, then a low hiss. Shh. Nia stiffened. The sound slithered through the trees. At first she could not tell if it was a hiss or a word stretched too long to be human. Yes! It came from behind her. Nia did not turn. Her body would not allow it. The hair at the back of her neck rose, and she knew with terrible certainty that she had lost whatever distance she once had. The stranger had caught up, or the darkness had, or maybe there had never been a difference. Please, Nia whispered to no one. Save me. The darkness seemed to reach for her, and then something inside her broke open. A final burst of strength moved her useless limbs, and Nia lunged forward. When she opened her eyes, she was no longer standing. She was held. Fur, muscle, heat. The beast had caught her against its enormous body, one arm wrapped around her as if she weighed nothing at all. Its fur was thick beneath her fingers, softer than anything so monstrous had a right to be. Heat rolled from it in deep waves, wrapping around her, swallowing the cold. Only her feet dangled beneath its arm. Hot tears gathered in her eyes. The stranger stepped out of the dark. He was closer now. Too close. Come to me. The words hung between the 3 of them. Nia trembled at the sound of his voice. She tightened her grip on the beast's torso, pressing herself into the fur, and the beast answered with a low, guttural growl. The sound vibrated through her chest. "The girl is mine," the stranger said. His voice was not loud. It did not need to be. "We are." He paused, and the pause felt full of teeth. "Hungry." The words rolled through the trees, echoing off leaves, bark, shadow, and bone. Naya pressed closer to the beast. "If I die," she thought, "it will not be by your hands." It was not courage. It was the last piece of herself choosing where to fall. She looked up, trying to see the beast's face, trying to tell it she understood, that she was afraid of it too, that she knew it was not mercy holding her. "Please," she whispered into its fur. "It's okay if you kill me. Just don't let the darkness near my body." The beast's grip tightened instantly. Air left Naya's lungs in a broken gasp. For one strange moment, she thought rain had begun to fall. Warm droplets touched her hair, slid to her scalp, then trailed down the back of her neck. The liquid moved slowly between her shoulder blades, thick and warm enough to make her skin prickle. Not rain, saliva. The beast inhaled her hair once, then again, then deeper. A cloud of hot breath rolled over her crown and down her face, damp and animal, blurring the edges of the world. Its maw hovered only inches above her head. Naya went still, and then she knew. The beast wanted her too. Another growl moved through them both, so deep it shook her bones. Then came a voice she had never heard before, low, ancient, almost tender. "As you wish." Nia woke with a start, her chest heaving, sweat making her hair and clothes cling to her mercilessly. The alarm on her cell phone that was set for 6:30 a.m. was now screaming for her attention at 7:30. Naya rolled over and repeatedly pressed the red stop icon, her phone's screen. "Oh no! I am late! 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 Damn it!" Nia, visibly panicked, rushed her shower. She co-washed her hair, using a balsam conditioner with hints of vanilla and wildflowers, with only enough time to partially dry her hair, using a high heat setting, followed by heatless air wraps to curl her hair. The satin wraps were stylish enough that she could walk out of the house with them still in her hair and not draw too much attention to herself. She set a reminder on her phone to remove them once she arrived at her Saturday photography class. The Seoul streets were coming to life with the start of the new day. Naya took the subway, which was 45 minutes, to the station nearest the Hagwon, where her class was held. She ran up the pathways towards classroom, all the while greeting familiar faces along the way. Though introverted, Naya wasn't too reserved that she wouldn't interact with Professor Alec, who happened to be one of the most handsome instructors she'd ever seen since she attended school at any age in her life. Naya's pocket buzzed, but she ignored the sensation and kept going. Since Professor Alec began teaching at the university photography class has become crowded. He replaced the original photography instructor early on. Once word spread about the new, hot professor, a room with ample seating was soon lost. So if you had a legitimate question and needed FaceTime with the professor, it was almost a lottery to get that one-on-one instruction. Another annoyance was seating. Being late for class almost always guaranteed a seat in the last row at the very back of the room, and that is something Nia disliked tremendously. Naya stepped into the already crowded classroom. She gave a deep, audible sigh as she scanned the room for a seat closer to the front. From across the full classroom, her friend Haley called her name as she waved her arm back and forth. Though the class hadn't started, Haley's actions had gotten the attention of several students, including Professor Alec, who diverted his attention from the student he was speaking with to acknowledge Nia's arrival. The professor gave a welcome to class head nod and wide smile. Nia smiled back, returning the nod in kind. Alec held his gaze longer than his usual welcome gesture, and that caught not only Nia's attention, but several of the students. Some shot wicked glances from Alec to Naya. Dropping her gaze, she made her way across the room, quickly sliding into the vacant chair. "Haley!" "Thank you so much," she said breathlessly. Excuse me, Ms. Thang. What the hell was that?" Haley asked as she craned her neck in the direction of where the professor was standing. "What was what?" Nia retorted. "Don't play with me, Nia." Haley's question had gotten the attention of several girls sitting near them as they stopped typing on cell phones or speaking with one another to divert their attention in Naya and Haley's direction, clearing her throat as she leaned closer to Naya. "At the door, the way Professor greeted you." "He greets everyone like that," Naya said while pulling materials from her shoulder bag. Haley contorted her facial expression, lifting one eyebrow. No, he don't, 'cause if he would have greeted me that way this morning." There was a dramatic pause. "Baby, I'd be on my way to our destination wedding by now and pregnant by tonight. I won't even hold you," Haley exclaimed as she snapped her fingers. Some of the eavesdroppers giggled. One even gave an audible, and some boy behind us said, "Yes, exactly what she said." Haley and Naya paused their conversation, looked at one another, and then burst into quiet laughter. Professor Alec cleared his throat, and the low murmur of the classroom softened into silence. He moved through the room with unhurried authority, checking cameras, lenses, batteries, every small piece of equipment that separated preparation from excuse. "Last week, we covered micro and macro photography," he said, glancing over the class. "Before we move forward, does anyone have questions about either format?" Several hands went up. Alec walked to the front of his workspace table and leaned against it, arms crossed, one ankle hooked casually over the other. He had the kind of height that made the room rearrange itself around him. 6'2", at least, Naya guessed, though she wasn't sure. His dark jeans disappeared into black industrial boots, and the thin black thermal shirt he wore seemed to have lost its battle against the shape of him. Broad shoulders, long torso, muscle held just beneath the surface. Haley leaned closer. "What's with his hair today?" Naya blinked. "What do you mean?" "His hair looks nice." "Nice? Girl, come on." Haley's whisper turned sharp with accusation. "The tousled look, the little bit of gel, those pieces hanging in his eyes like he just climbed out of a pool." She paused, then let out a low, ridiculous squeal. "Professor or not, he knows exactly what he's doing to us, and I don't like it." But the smile on Haley's face betrayed her. At the front of the room, Alec's mouth curved slightly. Not enough to be called a smile, just enough to make Naya's stomach tighten. No, impossible. They were too far from him. The room was too full of shifting bodies, papers, zippers, camera straps clicking against desks. There was no way he had heard them. Nia turned toward Haley, lowering her voice. "You are so obsessed. Sure, he's eye candy, but what if there's no substance beyond the face and body?" "Substance?" Haley whispered back, offended. "Who needs substance when you can look at all of that?" Her eyes flicked over Nia with sudden mischief. "But you wouldn't know anything about that. Look at you. Your head is always in a book. Do you even know you still have a ribbon in your hair?" Nia's hand flew to the top of her head. The satin ribbon was still there. "Oh, come on," she muttered, ducking toward the handout on her desk, as if she had suddenly become deeply interested in the assignment. She loosened the ribbon from the base of her coils and gave it a careful tug. The satin slipped free, gathering in her hand like water. She tucked it quickly into her book bag, then sat straighter and fingered her hair loose. The scent of balsam conditioner rose around her. At the front of the room, Alec's gaze lifted. Again. This time, neither Naya nor Haley noticed. They were too caught in their own small orbit of whispers and embarrassment. "What's wrong with my clothes?" Naya asked. Haley gave her a look. "Seriously?" "What?" "You usually dress like a nun, not 1 inch of skin showing anywhere. So what's with the missing undershirt?" Nia looked down. Her off-the-shoulder cotton sweater had slipped just enough to reveal the bare line of her shoulder. No tank top, no undershirt. No protective layer between her and the room. For Nia, that was not a small thing. "I cannot believe I did that," she whispered. Alec's voice cut cleanly through the class. "Great questions. Thank you for taking the work seriously." Nia's attention snapped forward. He was looking directly at her. "Today, we're going to work outside the classroom," he continued. "Use micro and macro techniques to discover which style best suits your eye. Don't rush the assignment. Find inspiration in the simplest places. This campus offers plenty if you just—" He paused. His expression settled into something calm, commanding. "Look." He blinked once, slowly, deliberately. Then he released them to begin their field work. Nia and Haley wandered the campus with their cameras, photographing benches, bushes, old doors, rusted hinges, oxidized knobs, and the decorative edges of buildings that most people passed without seeing. They moved easily together, drifting apart when one of them found a subject, falling back into step when they were ready to move on. Nia already knew what she wanted. Macro photography suited her. It allowed her to narrow the world until only one thing mattered: The vein of a leaf, the cracked lip of stone, the shadow between petals. She liked the intimacy of it, the control. While Haley focused on a statue in the center of the lawn, Naya moved toward a tall column of sculpted shrubbery. In black and white, maybe sepia, the shapes might look dramatic, almost haunted. She lifted the camera and adjusted the focal point. Then something shifted. Not sound, not movement. A feeling. Nia lowered the camera. Her eyes scanned the quad, moving from the pillars to the trees, then across the open walkways. Students passed in clusters. A few sat on benches. Someone laughed near the fountain. Nothing stood out. No one lingered without purpose. Still, the sensation crawled over her skin. Watched. She reached instinctively for the pendant beneath her sweater, only to remember there were no layers hiding it today. Her fingers closed around the oval green sapphire, cool and familiar against her chest. She wore it religiously. It made her feel protected. Except today. Today it felt like a dream. Like surveillance. Like something had found her in daylight and was waiting to see whether she noticed. Naya forced herself to breathe and lifted the camera again. Class would be ending soon, and she wanted at least 2 more shots before they returned. She tried to focus on the shrubbery, on the frame, on the clean little rectangle of the world she could control. A breeze slid over the back of her neck. Her pulse jumped. She turned sharply, scanning in a full circle. Nothing. Just people moving through their ordinary lives, unaware that her nerves had sharpened into glass. The wind picked up again, stronger this time, pushing loose curls away from her face and leaving her bare shoulder exposed. Cool air trailed along her neck like fingers. Her skin prickled. Naya closed her eyes. It's okay. She inhaled deeply, trying to pull the tension out of her own body. Her left hand moved to her neck, not tight, just firm enough to ground herself. Slowly, she dragged her palm downward, soothing the anxiety rising behind her ribs. It's okay, she whispered. A voice answered from behind her. What's okay? Naya's eyes flew open. She spun around so fast her breath caught. Professor Alex stood a few feet away, still and composed, as if he had been there the entire time. Oh my gosh. Her hand pressed against her chest. You scared me. I didn't mean to. His voice was even, almost gentle. What are you? I came to see if you and Haley had questions about the assignment. Questions, Nia repeated, still trying to pull herself back into her body. His faint smile did not reach his eyes. You seemed focused. I didn't want to interrupt your concentration. My concentration? You were standing there with your eyes closed. I assumed you were visualizing your focal points. Nia stared at him. She couldn't read his face, couldn't tell if he was teasing her, studying her, or telling the truth. All she knew was that he was close enough now for her to feel the weight of him beside her. Should she tell him? Should she say she felt watched? No? People were everywhere. Campus was full of wandering eyes and passing strangers. Saying it aloud would only make her sound ridiculous. I just need a few more shots of these bushes, she said, trying to sound normal. Then I think I'll be done for today. Alec nodded. Naya turned back to the shrubbery, but now she could feel his attention on her. It settled between her shoulder blades, warm and impossible to ignore. She lifted the camera. He stepped closer, her breath caught. She tried to steady her hand, grateful for the built-in stabilization feature. Closing her eyes once more, she shut out the wind, the campus, the professor, the strange pressure building around her. Then she opened them. The frame was there. The breeze teased the curls at her neck. Nia tilted her head slightly, adjusted the lens, and pressed the shutter. Click, click, click. A small smile touched her mouth. She knew without checking the viewfinder that she'd gotten the shot. Instinctively, she stepped back to reposition and backed straight into Alec. He had not moved. Professor, I'm so sorry. Nia looked over her shoulder, and her gaze caught on his. I didn't realize you were still there. For one suspended second, neither of them moved. Then his eyes lowered. Not to her mouth, not to her shoulder, but just behind her ear. How unique, he murmured. Nia froze. Did you know you have a tiny mole behind your ear? His voice softened. It's cute. Her mind scrambled to make sense of the comment, of his closeness, of the way the breeze slipped through the narrow space between them. Then Alec's head snapped up. The softness vanished. His gaze cut across the quad, sharp and searching, his brow tightened. Slowly, he scanned the area to their left, then the walkways beyond it. Naya followed his line of sight. There was nothing there, at least nothing she could see. Maybe he felt it too. The thought unsettled her more than the feeling of being watched. Alec refocused almost immediately. His expression smoothed back into composure, but something in his posture had changed. "Shall we go?" he said. It was phrased like a question. It sounded like an instruction. Nia didn't argue. Haley was waiting near the edge of the lawn, camera hanging from her neck, her expression carefully blank. She had seen enough to know something had happened. Not one day since the course began had she seen Professor Alec stand that close to any student, especially not Naya. Their interactions were usually brief, polite, and always tied to class, assignment questions, camera settings, nothing that looked like murmured words behind someone's ear. Haley wasn't sure whether to be excited for her friend or afraid for her. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe she was making too much out of a strange moment. But as they walked back toward the classroom, Alec fell a few steps behind them, and Haley's nerves tightened. "Nia," she said quietly. How did it go?" "What go?" "The pictures," Haley said, though that was not what she meant. "Did you get what you needed?" I got a lot." Naya sounded distracted. Haley glanced back once. Alec had slowed his pace, phone in hand, thumbs moving across the screen. By the time they reached the classroom, he had already sent the message. Several students watched Nia and Haley return to their seats. Then, almost in unison, those same students turned their attention back to Professor Alec. Their faces were expressionless, too expressionless. Neither Nia nor Haley noticed. Haley and Nia parted ways at the train station. Nia started down the subway stairs, then stopped. No, not today. Today she needed air. She turned around and chose the walk instead. Violet's new and used books was only 10 minutes past Myeongdong Station on foot, and the longer route gave her mind somewhere to go. Afrobeats filled her ears, warm and rhythmic, loosening some of the tension knotted in her shoulders. But the dream from that morning had not left her. It clung to the back of her thoughts. The wild dog, the man following her, the awful certainty that both of them meant to hurt her, and that no matter how hard she ran, she could not get away. Everything had felt too real. Nia moved through the city on instinct, letting her feet carry her across familiar streets and intersections. She knew the pavement here, knew the turns, the storefronts, the crosswalks, the pulse of traffic. She did not need to look closely to know where she was going. Then Violet's came into view. The storefront was painted white, with a sapphire blue awning that caught the afternoon light. Vines climbed one side of the building, their green leaves curling against the white paint, softening the hard edges of the city. Naya smiled despite herself. She loved the smell of the shop before she even opened the door. Ms. Che kept diffusers tucked between shelves, releasing notes of jasmine, cardamom, and something earthy Nia had never been able to name. Maybe sandalwood, maybe amber, maybe just an overpriced candle and a little imagination. But beneath it all was the smell Nia loved most. Old books, real old books. The limited editions were kept behind glass in a locked cabinet. When Nia dusted them, she wore white cloth gloves and handled them as little as possible. Miss Che always said the oils from their hands could scar the covers or darken the fragile page edges. Ms. Che was smart that way. Careful, kind. Something about her reminded Nia of her mother. Maybe it was. The disarming smile. Maybe the soft, matronly way she moved through the world. Maybe Naya simply missed her mother so much that she looked for echoes of her in anyone gentle enough to hold one. Whatever the reason, Ms. Che had become something close to family. The first time Naya accidentally called her mom, the word had slipped out so naturally that both of them went still. Ms. Che had not corrected her. So Nia kept saying it. Nia made her way into the side room, off to the right of the cash register. The space was larger than it looked from the sales floor and doubled as an employee lounge, storage room, and unofficial hiding place whenever the day became too loud. She placed her bag inside one of the lockers and slipped on her uniform. A sapphire blue apron with her name tag pinned neatly above her chest. NIA. The bell above the front door chimed before she could finish closing her locker. "Coming!" she called, rushing back out with the locker door left slightly ajar behind her. She reached the front of the store just as a young man stepped inside. "Welcome to Violet's new and used books," My name is Naya. Please let me know if you need any help finding your next read. Her voice was bright, professional, warm in the way Ms. Che had taught her to be, and her smile, despite the strange heaviness that had followed her all day, was genuine. The young man paused long enough for his gaze to find hers. Nia's nerves stirred. He was handsome in an easy, disarming way. Boyishly so. Early 20s, maybe. A college student, she guessed. Everything about him carried that boy-next-door charm that usually made people lower their guard without realizing it. Studious glasses framed his face perfectly. His hair was cut close on the sides and tousled on top, stylish in the way of someone who looked like he belonged to a rising K-pop group, minus the dramatic colors. His cream mock turtleneck contrasted against the dark jacket he wore. Black or navy, Naya couldn't quite tell. His nose was clean and delicate, his lips full enough to catch the light when he spoke. "Thank you," he said. His voice was smooth, velvety. Something about it made Naya's pulse quicken. Not attraction exactly. Recognition. The feeling passed through her too fast for her to name it. The young man moved toward the shelves, and Nia let him go, though her eyes lingered a second longer than they should have. She scanned the store for Ms. Che, but there was no sign of her. Violet's had quiet corners tucked throughout the shop. Small reading chairs, low tables, charging ports for phones and laptops. A few years ago, Ms. Che had overhauled the space to compete with the larger bookstores that offered couches and cafes and enough sugar to keep customers browsing for hours. Ms. Che had allowed the chairs. She had allowed the charging ports. She had even, begrudgingly, allowed drinks in the store. But a cafe? Absolutely not. If they want coffee, Ms. Che always said, they can buy the book first and drink coffee somewhere else. Nia smiled faintly at the thought, then grabbed the small trash bin and began her usual sweep through the store. She straightened pillows, collected abandoned receipts, returned books to their rightful places, and moved aisle by aisle, looking for anything out of order. By the third aisle, she found something, or rather someone. The young man stood near the shelves, still, too still. His body faced outward toward the main aisle, but he wasn't looking at the books. He wasn't browsing. He wasn't reading the spines. He was waiting. For her. Naya startled so hard a small scream broke from her throat. The young man did not flinch. Not even slightly. His expression remained blank, his gaze fixed on her with an intensity that emptied the air from her lungs. Naya grabbed the pendant at her neck. Her chest rose and fell too quickly. She tried to breathe, tried to remind herself that she was at work, that this was Violet's, that people startled each other in stores all the time, but he just stood there, watching. His mouth opened as if he meant to speak. "Nia?" Ms. Che appeared at one end of the aisle, and at the same moment another patron stepped in from the opposite side. Both had been drawn by the sound of Nia's cry. Both looked alarmed. "Honey, are you okay?" Ms. Che hurried toward her, hands already reaching for Nia's shoulders. Nia closed her eyes and tried to steady herself. "I'm okay, Mom," she whispered. When she opened her eyes, Ms. Che had gone still. For one fragile second, something flickered across the older woman's face. Not confusion, not simple concern, recognition, fear. Then it vanished so quickly, Nia wondered whether she'd imagined it. Before Nia could explain, a low baritone voice cut gently through the aisle. "Are you all right, miss?" The richness of it stopped her mid-breath. Nia and Ms. Che both turned. The man standing there was nothing like the young customer in the aisle. He was clean-cut, well-dressed, casual but precise, his clothes fitting him with quiet intention. His hair was cropped low, not quite a buzz cut, but close enough to suggest discipline. Where Mr. Collegiate's face held boyish softness, the stranger's jaw was angular, sharply made, with edges that looked carved rather than born. He looked like someone recently released from military service, or someone who had never really left it. His eyes moved over Nia quickly, head to toe, then back to her face. Not in a way that felt vulgar, but in a way that felt assessing, protective, possessive, too familiar. "Sir," Nia stammered, "are you okay, Nia?" Her breath caught. Concern was clear in his posture, in the slight step he took toward her. Too close for a stranger in Seoul. "I'm fine," Nia said, bowing slightly out of instinct. "Thank you for—" She stopped, her eyes lifted to his. "How do you know my name?" The stranger did not answer right away. He only stared at her, and the silence between them stretched thin enough to cut. Then the young man in the aisle cleared his throat. "I'm sorry," he said. Naya turned back toward him. His face changed slowly, as if a smile were something he had studied but not mastered. "I didn't mean to scare you. Nia, is it?" The way he said her name made her skin tighten. No, sir, you did nothing wrong." Naya forced a small laugh, too bright to be real. "No harm, no foul." She bowed to him, then turned and gave the stranger a polite little curtsy before she could stop herself. "Thank you again for coming to my rescue," she said, trying to make the whole thing lighter than it felt. "If either of you need help locating a book, periodical, or anything else, please let me know." Then she grabbed Ms. Che's arm. "Sorry, Mom." The two women moved toward the back of the store, away from the aisle and away from both men. Nia returned to straightening shelves, though her hands no longer felt steady. Ms. Che spoke beside her, filling the quiet with news about the latest shipment of antique books she had received from overseas. She had spent the entire morning and most of the afternoon cataloging them and entering them into the point-of-sale system. That caught Naya's attention. Antique shipments were her favorite. A few minutes later, she stood at the front counter, reviewing the new inventory list, when a shadow fell across the page. "Excuse me. Nia." The stranger's voice was hushed. Nia paused, her fingers still resting on the paper. "Yes?" Her eyes did not quite meet his. "How can I help you?" "I think I need assistance locating a book." His smile was faint, controlled. "What are you interested in?" Naya asked quickly. "I can search our registry." "I doubt you have this book." He stepped closer to the counter. The space between them changed immediately. His presence seemed to fill the open air, pressing into the counter, the register, the shelves behind her, everything around her, including Nia. "I'm looking for a cookbook," he said. "An old one? There may be copies." "Okay." Nia placed her hands on the keyboard, grateful for something practical to do. "Do you know the title?" The stranger's smile remained in place. "The British Library has a very old cookbook from India." He paused, and for reasons Naya could not explain, the pendant at her throat went cold. "Nasir Shah's Book of Delights," the stranger said. "Kitab-i-Nimatnama-i Nasir Shah Hat. Supposedly dated sometime in the 1500s. He paused. From where Nia stood behind the counter, it looked as if he were deciding how much of his own curiosity he wanted to reveal. "Some call it the Book of Pleasure," he continued. "The recipes are unusual." Nia's fingers hovered over the keyboard. "Unusual how?" The stranger's eyes lowered for half a second. Not enough to be rude, just enough to make her aware of her mouth, her throat, the hollow of her collarbone where her sweater had slipped wider than usual. Then he looked back at her, composed once more, as if the moment had never happened. "The way it describes food and pleasure," he said quietly. "It's very specific." He retrieved his phone and scrolled until he found the passage he wanted. His voice dropped as he read, each word measured, smooth and deliberate. "There are recipes for deep-fried pastries filled with finely minced deer meat, flavored with fenugreek, saffron, cloves, coriander, musk onions, and rosewater. Mango sherbets spiced for the body. Food prepared not only for appetite, but for desire." He stopped there. Nia blinked. "That is..." She tilted her head, genuinely intrigued, despite herself. "A fascinating read." The stranger watched her face carefully, waiting for any flicker of discomfort, amusement, interest, anything. "If you could," she asked, a smile tugging at her mouth, "would you really try to recreate those dishes?" His gaze sharpened. "For pleasure?" Naya's cheeks warmed before she could stop them. "For historical accuracy," she corrected quickly, looking back at the computer screen. The stranger smiled faintly. He liked that she could still blush. He liked even more that she tried to hide it. Something about him had started to feel familiar to Nia. Not his face. She was certain she had never seen him before. But his voice carried a strange warmth that settled low in her memory. And the cologne he wore, clean, dark, faintly spiced, made her skin feel too aware of itself. She typed the title into the registry, grateful for the task. The stranger used the moment to breathe in slowly. Not obvious. Not enough for anyone else in the store to notice. But he noticed. He noticed everything. The longer he stood across from her, the more certain he became. She was the one, not merely a girl behind a counter, not merely a pretty face with shy eyes and a soft voice. His one, his offering, his sacrifice. Between aisles 1 and 2, Mr. Collegiate watched them. He had been watching for the entire exchange, the stranger leaning closer, Nia smiling despite herself, that little blush rising in her cheeks like dawn breaking over untouched snow. Between aisles 1 and 2, a silent battle was taking place. His fingers tightened around the book in his hand. "This will never do," he murmured. Even from where he stood, Nia's scent seemed to move through the air in delicate threads, warm, clean, sweet beneath the balsam of her hair and the paper dust musk of the store. It settled around him until his breath grew shallow. A hunger stirred low in his body, old, sacred, terrible. He closed his eyes and pressed 2 fingers against the shelf beside him, careful not to disturb the books. Heat gathered beneath his skin, spreading from his center in a slow, radiant pulse. His clothes suddenly felt too tight, the collar at his throat too close, the air too thin. It had been years since desire had gripped him with such violence. Not ordinary desire, recognition, a summons. Nia had awakened something that should have remained buried. Mr. Collegiate wanted to take her intimately then and there, in the bookstore, on the countertop. He imagined what it would be like to nibble the soft, untouched skin on Nia's inner thigh. He could smell that she was fresh, untouched. He imagined her writhing in ecstasy, as could not withstand him licking her, teasing her. He'd dull her senses with his magician's work. He'd long since mastered the art of mastication, and the idea of what he could do brought a small smile to his face. He forced himself to breathe through it, forced his mouth to close, forced his body to remember restraint. Across the store, the stranger's voice continued, low and intimate. Mr. Collegiate opened his eyes. The ache eased, but not the need. He would have to find a way to get her alone. At the counter, the stranger decided it was time to leave. Better to go now, while Nia still looked at him with curiosity instead of fear. Trust, he knew, had to be cultivated, slowly, carefully, like a plant grown in darkness, fed by patience and intention. Her naivete drew him in, not because she was foolish, because she had not yet learned what the world truly was. She still believed kindness was usually kind, that strangers were only strangers. That danger announced itself with claws and teeth and obvious shadows. He intended to teach her otherwise. "Nia," he said. She looked up. The way he said her name made the air between them change. "Thank you for your help." "No problem at all." Her voice brightened, though she still had difficulty meeting his gaze directly. "We just received a large shipment of antique books. If I come across any antique cookbooks, would you like to be notified?" Finally, her eyes lifted to his. Large, warm, open. She worried her bottom lip between her teeth, like someone asking permission to bend a rule she was not quite sure existed. For the first time since he had entered Violet's new and used books, the stranger's smile became real, brief, autonomic, almost boyish in its satisfaction. "Yes," he said, the word leaving him on a quiet breath. He extended his phone toward her. Nia looked at it, then back at him, confused. "You can add your number here," he said. "Oh." Nia grinned, and this time there was mischief in it. "No, I don't give you my personal number." The stranger stilled. Nia tried not to laugh. "You provide your contact information, name, email, or phone number. If and when we receive an item that fits your request, we'll contact you." She said it matter-of-factly. All business. For a moment, the wind seemed to leave his sails. Only for a moment. Then his composure returned, smooth as a blade sliding back into its sheath. "Of course." Nia turned the registry tablet toward him. He entered his information with careful fingers. Name OS Colin Shaw. Phone number. Email. When he finished, he slid the tablet back across the counter. "I cannot wait to see you again, Nia." She gave him a polite smile, the kind meant for customers and safe distances. Callan accepted it as a promise. Then he stepped out into the evening, with her scent still clinging to him like a secret he could not scrub from his skin. The city moved around him in smears of headlights and neon. Pedestrians passed. Traffic hissed against damp pavement. Somewhere, music spilled from a restaurant door and vanished as soon as it opened. But Callan's mind remained inside the bookstore. On the girl behind the counter, the softness of her voice, the shyness of her smile, the pulse fluttering at the base of her throat. She had offered him professionalism when what he wanted was something far more intimate, far more irreversible. His jaw tightened. Desire had already sharpened into intent. He pulled out his phone and hit call. Alec answered on the first ring. "Callan." "She's the one," Callan said. The words were low, absolute. There was no pause on the other end. No surprise, only silence, cool and calculating. "What do you need me to do?" Alec asked. Callan glanced back toward the bookstore, though Nia was no longer visible through the glass. "I need a private connection." Alec's breathing shifted. "Can you be more specific?" "She has to trust someone close enough to follow them. No force, no spectacle, no panic." Alec gave a quiet hum, almost thoughtful, almost amused. "Photography is only on Saturdays," Callan said. "That gives you 6 days." "I can work with 6 days," Callan's mouth flattened. "She has to be willing." "Don't worry," Alec said softly. "She'll come willingly." The line went dead. For a long moment, Callan stood beneath the bruised evening sky, staring at the black screen in his hand. Somewhere beyond the glass and concrete and city noise, Nia was still moving through her life untouched by the truth of what had begun around her. She still believed in ordinary things: classrooms, bookshelves, shared laughter, the safety of daylight, the harmlessness of kind faces. She did not know that eyes had settled on her from the dark. She did not know that hunger had learned her name. Photography was only on Saturdays. That gave Alex 6 days. 6 days to earn her trust, 6 days to draw her closer, 6 days to make sure that when Nia finally stepped toward the dark, she would do it on her own.
Thank you so much for listening to Chapter 1, I Think There Are Demons Here. This story is still unfolding, and I'm trying my hand at blending omegaverse, supernatural tension, and noir romance into something dark, emotional, and a little dangerous. If you enjoyed this chapter, please like, comment, and subscribe. And tell me in the comments, what do you think Nia should fear more? The stranger in the dream? The beast in the woods? Or Professor Alec?